In 1901, the grandmother of Europe, Queen Victoria of Great Britain, had died, leaving behind the largest empire the world had ever known, with colonies on all four corners of the globe. Her children were established in high positions all over Europe. The eldest son, Edward VII, was her successor, and was married to Alexandra of Denmark. But his reign would only last a decade after his death in 1910 left his son King George V to inherit the crown. King George's cousin, Tsar Nicholas II, who could be mistaken for his twin brother, was Emperor of Russia. The Emperor of Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was cousins with both rulers and took the reins as emperor after his father, Frederick III, had died from larynx cancer in 1888, inheriting an empire his grandfather Wilhelm I had built. The German Empire formed in 1871 after the Kingdom of Prussia, the largest and most powerful German state, spearheaded a unification process of other various German kingdoms, which were either independent or under control from other European powers. Led by military leader Otto von Bismarck with King Wilhelm I, they fought a series of unification wars, one against the Danish in 1864, another against Austria in 1866, which would see the formation of the North German Confederation, and lastly against the French in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. France declared war on Prussia and lost. The peace treaty would be signed in the Palace of Versailles, where it was agreed France would have to pay 5 billion francs in reparations, and they would lose the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine, which was a humiliating blow to the French and would fuel future resentment towards the Germans. The French would increase their borders defense and would join the Triple Entente, an alliance between Great Britain, France, and Russia, to curtail foreign aggression, mostly from Germany. The Second Industrial Revolution was in full swing at the turn of the century. Every European power had undergone a major military and industrial build-up. Germany within a few years became the largest economy in landlocked Europe, but still behind Britain in terms of influence. Germany knew that a major factor to British dominance was their navy, and so the first arms race of the century between the two great empires would transpire. Both would develop the dreadnought, the largest battleships of their day, the nukes of the early 20th century. However, despite the European upper class being immensely rich, as many were entrenched in the various institutions of their governing societies, the workers who built up these nations were working under abysmal conditions. Unions didn't exist, and many of those under the working class were calling for a workers' revolution to bring fair wages and safe working conditions to employees. Despite the world being relatively peaceful, people knew a great European war was on the horizon due to the military buildup and companies foaming at the mouth to make massive profits from the high production of war equipment. The elite wanted a war to expand their power, and workers wanted greater yield for their labors. In 1908, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, led by Franz Joseph I, ruled for over 66 years, annexed Bosnia after they had gained independence. This was an outrage to the Balkan states, mainly Serbia, who wanted Bosnia to be an independent ally to them, so they could have access to a seaport. Many of the Balkan nations had recently gained their independence from the now dwindling Ottoman Empire, and now many Slavs wanted a unifying Slavic nation throughout the Balkans, free of the influence of the great European powers that surrounded them. This act of aggression from Austria-Hungary damaged potential relations with Serbia and Russia, who felt guilty for not being able to stop the annexation and then viewed Serbia as their only ally in the region that needed their protection. Later on, the Kingdom of Italy gambled that Britain, France, and Germany would do nothing to stop them from attacking the Ottoman Empire. And they were right. They went to war on September 29th, 1911, and actually beat the Ottomans, gaining Libya as a colony in the process. This conflict also saw the first use of airplanes in combat. The Balkans and Greece, seeing how easily the Ottomans could be defeated, attacked them in the First Balkan War of 1912 and drove out any remaining Ottoman influence in the area, fully solidifying their independence. The alliance was short-lived, however, as Bulgaria would attack Serbia and Greece, as they weren't satisfied with how the region had been split up, viewing the territory split as favoring Serbia and not them. All this was happening at the feet of the Austro-Hungarian border, and they viewed Serbia's rise as Russo-Slavic aggression that threatened the sovereignty of their empire.